instead. Hello, everyone. This is October 24th. It is the Cluster API Azure meeting. This is a meeting that is recorded and available on the internet, so please be mindful of what you say, do. Please be sure to adhere to the Kubernetes code of conduct, and just in general, be excellent people. So we don't have too much on the agenda, so I figured what we would do is maybe roll through some of the things that we have been working on, as well as what we can do is we can start off with introductions. So anyone who's new to the call, feel free to say hi and what you're here for.
Hello, do you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm Javier. I work for the Azure Stack team. Azure Stack is an on-prem cloud that shares a lot of the same APIs that Azure also has. So the idea is to bring Cluster API to Azure Stack. So that's why I'm joining.
Awesome. Would you mind, so for all of the new attendees, would you mind also in the welcome section, just drop your name as well as what you're here for? So you can do it on the call, but I also want to capture it in the notes so we can keep that top of mind when we think about things that we want to get accomplished.
I'll add the notes. Right now I'm trying to, I have my own fork making things work. Whenever I have an idea of what's required, I'll engage more with you guys.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you and welcome.
So, sorry.
It will feel better. Mark, I see you have your hand up.
Yep, I work on the same team as Cecile and David, working on AKS engine work, mainly around supporting Windows, and I'm here because I've heard there was an interest in getting Windows support with Cluster API Azure, so just seeing how I can help out.
Awesome, welcome. Right, let's go down the list.
Hi, Vivi. Sorry, I was not able to add the document. I don't have the access right for that. So I'm from VMware, so I'm working on some new project for deploy Kubernetes on a cluster. So I'm very interested in the topic. That's why I'm joining today to see to get more information about the project and to see what I can do from there.
Awesome. Are you on the TKG team? Maybe on Clint's team or something?
No. Yeah, we have a new project.
Okay, we can chat VMware stuff offline.
Yeah, so I was not able to add it to the document, so maybe next time.
Yes. So if you join the cluster lifecycle mailing list, you'll have access to edit the document. Cool. Mm-hmm. All right, who's next?
I think I can go. So my name is Kalia Subramanian. I work at Microsoft, and I'm on the container networking team. So mostly what I'm looking into is providing Windows support for Cluster API in Azure, because I did the kubeadm work in Windows to bootstrap Windows nodes, and I own the script that's in SIG Windows Tools right now, which is the official Kubernetes supported way of bootstrapping a Windows node. So I just want to integrate that here.
Awesome, that would be great. Welcome.
Hello, you hear me?
Yep.
So I'm Zach. I work alongside Kalia. I'm here to help her out and work on similar stuff. So
cool. Well, it sounds like
bring Windows support.
Yeah, it sounds like Windows support is popular for this call. All right, so let's really quickly, I think we got everyone, but if anyone else wants to introduce themselves or reintroduce themselves, feel free. All right, cool. So I guess I should introduce us, a few of us. Hi, Stephen Augustus. I'm a senior cloud native architect at VMware. I work on one of the admins, maintainers of Cluster API Azure, also the product management chair and SIG release chair for the Kubernetes project. So hello, everyone. We've also got Cecile, Wanli, Nick and David, who, so Nick is at Wayfair, Cecile and everyone else I mentioned are at Microsoft, working on AKS or working on Cluster API directly, and we are some of the primary maintainers of the upstream project. So cool. All right, so let's go into really quick. I will share my screen, and we can just see what our test health is looking like. And pushes. All right, so we've got a few flaky tests. I believe these are all related to, let's see. Okay, only two. These are probably silly things from past PRs.
Also getting some push image errors.
Say what?
We're also getting push image errors.
Yeah, okay. So this is resolved eventually. Yeah, this was related to our Go auto rest bump, as well as the Azure SDK bump. That's now fixed, or fixed-ish. And all right. Okay, so Cecile, that's you working on the image plan?
That should be a PR build, right? That's not something that merged. Like
Yes, it's a PR build.
Okay, yeah, it's fixed before merging.
Okay, cool. Right, and all right, so the image pushes, the failures were probably breakages that I caused in the actual image builder tool. So let's see, artifacts and build log. What happened here? The matching manifest. Okay, so this is possible. Go recently had an update from from 110 to 111 and then 112, a set of incremental feature fixes, as well as some CV, addressing some CVs. So what likely happened was we tried to bump this before the images were available. The images lag behind the actual release. So that's probably what that was.
Yeah, that's very possible. I think we merged it pretty quickly.
Yeah, 1018. Yeah, that sounds about right. 1018, 1017. Cool. And same here. Okay, so any questions on what I just checked out? Anyone who's not familiar with the buttons that I clicked on?
I have one. How come the PR results are mixed with master? Because as someone is contributing to a PR, it's normal that they would have failed tests, right? So we don't want those to add noise to the results from master, right?
So these are, yeah, these are all pretty much all the ones that we're watching are pre-submits, right?
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's before it makes it into master, but this is like the primary board. If we got to a point where we had so many tests, like we were doing lots of periodic and post-submit stuff, then maybe we'd consider doing separate tabs. But I think that, you know, this is a small enough set of tests to watch on a single group. To give you an example of something that's, you know, is maybe more involved, SIG release master blocking has a few more tests. If we look at like SIG release 116 all, you can see that there are quite a few tests, right? And that makes sense breaking some of these out. These are not our fault, by the way, so so ignore the GC, GKE tests. But you can see we're not dealing with a lot right now. And then the basal ones are essentially, they will disappear. They'll fall off this board eventually because one, we've removed basal from the current master branch. The branches that are using the branch that's using basal, the release 02 branch, now uses the PR test PR tests and PR build results. So those will report into to those sections instead. So all of these basal ones will eventually fall off the board. Cool. Any questions on that?
Nope.
All right. Cool. So we're going to do a quick project board review. I know that we recently had a few more things pop up on the project board or pop up on the repo that I want to make sure that we capture in the project board. So what I usually do here is just do a add cards, right? And we can see that we've got a few things that are not captured on the project board. And I'm going to open those all up because I want to close a few of these. All right, so drag everything to the backlog. And then we can start going into it. Okay, so.
So for context, Ria opened a bunch of these. We were pairing with her, so she's going to be onboarding and coming to help us PM some of this stuff. And so we were just trying to like go through the repo and add some good issues for things that we'll need to do in the future. But these might need more details.
Yeah. So I would say let's try to sync on these because I'm actually going to close a few of them right now. So going into BYO VNet, I already had an issue open for supporting existing resources, right? So right. So any comments regarding the VNet should go on that other issue. Reduce amount of cluster create time. This is valid. Does anyone want to take it?
What are the things that are currently holding us up on create time?
The fact that the clusters come up serially, really.
Yeah, I was thinking like if we forked that, that might be the best approach.
The
came up at the same time as the control plane.
Well, we kind of can't do that. I'm not sure that we have to. I'm thinking we have to think about this a little bit because this might be. So here's the thing: the flow for spinning up a cluster, the first control plane node has to come up first, right? The first control plane node has the cube ADM init, right? So the cluster does not exist until that comes up, right? And then whatever order the next two control planes come up in is not really relevant.
I have a potential trick that we can do here that would allow us to kick off all the provisioning at once.
Okay.
And then still serialize the first control plane, but the VMs will be ready to go. And so the gist of it is that we don't use the bootstrap data right away. We have some pre-bootstrap data, and what that amounts to is a script that is talking to the metadata endpoint and periodically asking it, do we have updated custom data? And so what would happen is we still block on the first control plane coming up, but as soon as it comes up, you apply the custom data to the real custom data.
Right.
Yeah. And it goes and it says, oh, hey, I have it. And then you run that, what do you call it? The cloud init at that point.
Okay, so can we do that? I thought the Cloud Init was like a one-shot
You
on
can,
like instantiation.
it is for the automatic stuff, but if you want to call Cloud Init like run phase, you can do that manually.
Okay, so it sounds like maybe you want to work on this.
Sounds like do you want to add that information to this ticket? Like give us
Yeah, let me add that information. I need to get time to submit the machine pool PR. Once I get that submitted, I can pick up something else. If I get that in due time, then I'll definitely pick this up.
Okay, cool.
Oh, Stephen?
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt. I have a meeting at 2. I was wondering if I could just take like a few minutes now, or because I know the next meeting is in 2 weeks.
All right, so let's do this.
Sorry to interrupt the flow.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Windows is on the board, actually. Right. And we also have, okay, so this one that was open, I'm closing.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't involved in, or yeah, I think Patrick has been kind of like.
Sorry, we opened the second one on purpose, Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
We actually saw the first one. The reason is that the first one has like very detailed, like basically implementation details on how it should be done, which we think is maybe not relevant anymore since the issue was dated back in March. So we'd like to start with a proposal of how it should be done. And so this was kind of to outline that rather than just saying like Windows support, like as a PR. Here's how it's done.
So let's do the proposal as part of the original.
We just didn't want to like keep the original description just so I wouldn't mislead anyone who pick it up.
We can update the original description.
Yeah, I just didn't have powers to do that because I'm not admin on the repo.
Oh, who's Kalyanaj?
That's not you.
I think she probably typed the wrong person.
Yeah, that was supposed to be you, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, yeah, I was like, this is kind of a weird coincidence, but yeah, I'll give you mine if you could add me on that. So it's at.
Hold on a second.
Okay.
Go for it.
KSUB RMNN.
Sorry, what? Sorry.
Oh, it's KSUB RMNN.
Okay.
Oh no.
That.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it's just it's just because you're probably not part of this org. That's why. Right.
Oh yeah, I recently joined the group for that. So.
Cool. So next, long term. So who wants to be point on this?
I think. Oh, who's Maroset?
That's Mark.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's Mark. Okay, yeah. So I've talked to Mark and Patrick. Okay, this makes sense though. Okay, I think I'm going to be the lead on this.
Okay. So I can't assign you because you might not be part of the org.
Okay, I'll join the org and then we can assign and then.
Yeah. Can I give it to someone on the Microsoft side that is already part of the org in the meantime? Maybe.
Mark in the meantime, maybe?
I recently joined the org. If you can assign it to me, go for it, and then I'll give it back to Kalia, I think.
If not, you can assign it to me.
Okay. So we'll do this. And how do we feel about timing for this? Is this right now it's set as milestone next?
What's the date for that?
There is no date.
Okay. Okay, I think, I think that's reasonable for now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, milestone next is a bucket.
For anything that is not in our current milestone. So our current milestone is V1 Alpha 2, right? Which is V03.
Okay.
Should we call it V1 Alpha 3? Is it too early?
Let's land 2 first and then see how we feel.
Okay, so we'd probably need to set up, because I know we're keeping the design discussions public, right? So we need to set something up where we can go in depth on this.
Yeah. So Mark, if you've joined the, Talia and Mark, if you're part of the Kubernetes org already, you can apply for membership to Kubernetes SIGs as well. You haven't?
Oh, I'm in Kubernetes SIGs for sure.
Oh, okay. Well,
I don't think I am. I'll have to.
let's try this again.
Sorry, I thought you meant cluster API provide. Like I thought it was a sub.
Oh, it's global. It's global membership.
Okay.
No.
No, I'm in it, I swear. Okay, anyway.
All right. You might have gotten the invitation for it, but not accepted yet.
Oh, okay. Okay, sure. I added, okay. I'll figure that out.
Yeah. So if you go to, I think if you go to, like,
I already made the PR and it got merged, so there's probably just something else.
yeah. So if you go to, ooh, no, that's not it.
You have to accept it. There's something, you get an invitation, you have to accept it, right?
Yeah. Oh my God. What?
And it says you can only assign people who have commented on the issue already. So maybe that's why.
Maybe.
I'll figure it out and assign myself.
Yeah. I think if you go here.
Same with me.
Yeah. If you go here, and you've gotten an invitation that you haven't accepted yet, I believe it will have like a little banner at the top to accept the invitation. So just check that out. All right. Well, now no one's assigned, but we'll get to that.
Oh yeah, okay, I see. All right, now I'm joined.
All right.
So sorry.
No problem. Come on. Cool. All right.
Okay.
You're officially assigned. All right. So what do we want to talk about here?
I think we're not going to have time to discuss everything. I think we just need to set up the time and medium for how we're going to discuss.
Okay. So do you want to coordinate finding a time for that, or do you want to block out time in the next meeting? Do you need to do it sooner, or?
I think it'll be more appropriate to have it be separate.
Okay.
So, yeah, as long as that sounds good to people, then I can coordinate that.
Sounds good to me.
Good.
At least for the initial meeting, I think it'll be separate, and we'll follow up in these bi-weeklies.
Yep, sounds good.
Cool. Okay, Zach and I are gonna drop off the call now, but thanks for helping me out with this. So.
Yeah, for sure. Pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, see you next meeting.
Later. Okay. Okay. Let's put that into due. I think this is doable within this milestone. All right. This is yes, Cecile, absolutely. This is let's try to get this done. But anyone want to take this? The using Azure managed identities instead of the service principal for
Instead I like that. Are we gonna really can we please deprecate the service principal support?
Please don't.
I don't think we can deprecate it, but we can maybe make it not the default. Have it force it to be explicitly set.
Yeah, I think we can start with having both options.
Yeah.
Do you mind going into that a little
Sorry,
bit?
Javier.
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile for a little discussion if people want to set the context for that.
Oh yeah, yeah. I can just give a brief rundown. So, Azure AAD has well, I guess two categories of identities. One is service principal, the other is managed identity. So, managed identity actually has two types of managed identities, and and that's user assigned managed identity and system assigned managed identity. So, both of those, just like the name implies, is an identity that you don't have to manage the credentials for. And so the way that that is possible is that instead of calling a kind of an authentication server, you actually call the metadata endpoint to get the token for that credential, and the use of that token is basically bound to the VM. And so I believe this support refers to user assigned managed identity, which means that you create an identity and then assign that to a group of VMs.
So
that
why not system assigned? I think we would prefer system assigned now.
System assigned
I think that
is
was.
one per. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I think that was the intent here, was system assigned first and then user assigned second. Unless you object, I wasn't.
I would say user assigned not at all if possible.
So the problem there is that with systems assigned managed identity, those are each individual. Each VM has its own distinct credential that needs to be assigned a particular set of roles. And so so user assigned is more convenient for the Kubernetes use case, because let's say, for example, you create one user assigned managed identity for the control plane, and that
Bind a role to it, and then
and then when you go and do cluster upgrade, you're not you don't have to go and assign roles, which requires a pretty high. When you upgrade by replacing, you don't have to reassign roles, which requires a pretty high.
Basically, contributor plus or something access to assign the role or to bind the role.
Needs to be owner. So yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, contributor can do some things, but not role assignment.
Okay. So who wants this? Do we have someone?
I would almost say that this is a good first issue, because it's.
Let's do help wanted, because we haven't scoped it yet. So good first issue implies that we have fully scoped it in the ticket, and we haven't done that yet.
I'm good with help wanted.
Yeah. And okay, milestone. Okay, all right.
So part of like supporting this, will that be kind of like with the cluster AWS ADM command? It sets up like the roles and everything ahead of time.
Yes.
Are we going to have to incorporate those roles into cluster Azure ADM now?
No, I don't want us creating cluster Azure ADM. It was in the back of my mind for a while, but since we're at this point, and we're also at a point where AWS is considering turning that stuff down, like cluster CTL is going to be going away at some point. Cluster AWS ADM is going to go away. So
cluster CTL is going away?
Yeah.
What's replacing
cluster ADM?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so cluster ADM,
and ADM,
TBD, something, yeah, and that should get most, if not all, of the functionality, or more than just that functionality for cluster CTL. So what I would say is that part of this should be needs to be scoped.
Yeah. So the way that it will work is if you're creating the cluster, and there's a two-liner to give the appropriate permissions, and then yeah, I think It's not, yeah, I don't think we need it. It's pretty simple. So it's just, I think we'll require some documentation. Oh, actually, yeah. This is a tiny bit tricky because you probably have to create a service principal that gets stuck into kind and then is used to then go provision the managed identity and do all that fancy stuff. I'll document this.
Yeah, and I would say here we want to make sure that we're not. We should prescribe the method for doing it. We should not build tools to do it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Is there still the need for an identity on nodes, or is that gone with CSI becoming a thing?
There are more things that we need to care about, I guess. So for control planes, I mean, cloud provider interaction, control planes managing load balancers, things of that sort, we would still want some sort of identity.
Definitely. But what about workers?
Workers, not so much, I guess, outside of CSI. I guess outside of the entry required storage stuff, once I guess once we're fully out of tree on the cloud provider Azure side, then that story starts to change, but we probably still need to have some sort of identity there. We should follow up there. Javier, yeah, we don't plan on removing the SPNs.
That's fine. I just wanted to put it somewhere in writing.
Okay. All right. So yeah, we should look at this for, I don't know what's happening with Zoom. Give me a second. Okay. David, you have your hand up?
Yeah, just real quick, I just wanted to confirm, we do not want to remove service principals. Like, we still want to have those resident on nodes.
We don't want to remove the support for service principals. I think depending on what mode you decide to configure your stuff in, that'll determine whether or not you have service principals on nodes as well.
And
okay, sure, awesome, perfect.
And very specifically, the reason why we want to continue support there is because there's the Azure Stack scenarios, and there's no managed identity support for those.
Yeah.
If you want to work there.
And I mean, there are also tools and things that we have not, inventoried that may be dependent on service principals. So we don't want to wholesale remove that stuff. Cool. All right. So that is, yeah, I definitely feel like that's a now milestone thing, and should be simple to accomplish. But we'll see. All right. Okay, Zoom is passing around hosts. That's awesome. All right. So this one concerns me, I guess. So tell me more. Tell me more, David.
Sure. For debugging purposes, it's really nice to be able to see a trace of all, what's going on in your code, and having metrics output from the code as well. So if started early enough, instrumenting the code with open telemetry or open tracing, it's actually pretty trivial to get those basic parts in place.
So I feel that this is, if we want to do that, what I don't want is to have Azure diverge from Cluster API proper, right? So if we want to discuss telemetry, observability, and all that stuff, it should be a Cluster API discussion, not a Cluster API
awesome.
discussion.
And in fact, yeah, I would definitely see that having to happen, because if the input for the API is coming in on through Cluster API, then clearly we're going to have some kind of a flow downward into the providers.
Yeah. So I think when I initially read this, my confusion was, well, a cluster is observable today, right? So I was wondering what specifically you're referring to, but that's fine.
I think so. I think the idea here is so the Azure SDK for Go has the open telemetry support built in, and if we pass context to that, then we will be able to understand latencies for different operations. With that additional tracing that is more granular than just like, hey, a VNet was. I mean, we know which VNet it is, but or hey, a VM is provisioned, but we'd be able to get the context like, oh, hey, control plane is taking this long versus regular worker node is taking this long.
Yeah, so one thing I would caution there is to not wire too much functionality that only exists in the Azure side. Again, like you mentioned that the tracing stuff is available. I know the tracing stuff is available because we run into dependency issues with the tracing stuff that was only recently fixed. But we need to make sure that we're providing functionality that's consistent across providers as well. So I will call this out as important, but important long-term, and milestone next, unless someone feels super passionately about it. Yeah. Sound good?
Yep, sounds good.
Cool. All right. And accelerated networking. Okay, Cecile, you want to go for it?
Sure. I think that one should be pretty easy to light up. It's just a matter of exposing it and turning it on in the virtual machine spec.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the doc is pretty self-explanatory in why we should do this and the benefits of accelerated networking for VMs that support it.
Yeah, for sure. So one thing I would caution here is, one, we need to be, so here in the description, we need to be explicit about the fact that we don't support scale sets right this moment. Right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Two, we need to do something very similar to what we do for, I believe we need to do something very similar for what we do for the availability zones, right? So we need to see if the type supports supports accelerated networking, and only if it supports it, then considering passing that into the VM spec.
Yeah, so in this case, it's per VM size. And so we can know which VM sizes support it because it's by like number of CPUs, but unfortunately there isn't a straightforward API that we can just like call and get the list of supported VMs back, or at least I haven't found one.
Okay.
So that's the biggest difficulty with this issue, is finding how to enable it only for supported VMs.
That it actually might be part of the, hold on. Let's see if I can dig this up quickly. I'm wondering if it's part of the same lists API. I think it is when I was poking at it. What did I did not have a command here. Or maybe I did. Yeah, so if you,
I know which.
so in
I think
capabilities,
it might be a little misleading.
and this might not be a type that has it, but oh, accelerated networking enabled false, right? So we can, okay, here's the tricky part. I think there is an API to do this. It's not exposed in our SDK. David, do we have updates on that? Or I should just read the issue. Okay, no updates. Are there internal updates regarding that?
Is this the provider information?
The zone mapping? Yeah, provider information.
So the zones are correct now. So if you list SKU, you get your SKUs back, and you
sorry, not the list SKU, but the provider list, right? So
let me check in. We end up seeing different provider information because the subscription that we end up using has like feature flags turned on. So let me check with the different subscription.
Okay.
And I'll verify that.
Okay, cool. So in the meantime, I will do this. Oh, I can't assign you yet.
This issue already got a lot of attention from the public, so I'm excited about. There's like 2 rocket reactions.
What's a rocket reaction?
These.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I thought it was something else.
They're bot accounts. So they don't.
But they were bot accounts. So let's put this into do, and kind of sure labels are there. Right. All right. Yeah, so I feel like we can use the same pattern that we were using for availability zones to do this. What we do need to do is, I know that you said the availability zones thing is fixed. I would like for us to still wire up the code to check the provider capabilities on the VM type before removing that kind of hard-coded struct that I have in there, that hard-coded slice that I have in there for the VM types. Make sense, or did I just say words?
Do you mind repeating the last part, actually?
Yeah, so there is a piece of code that we have, and it is
Is it the AZs?
Yeah, services, no, defaults. So I have a string slice here that just lists out what the supported availability zone locations are. So it checks to see if your location is one of these locations before trying to enable deciding if it's going to enable
selecting available zones.
Yeah, so that is machine controller reconciler.
Did you add that because the code that existed previously that checked for that wasn't working properly?
It wasn't that I fixed the code that wasn't working properly. What was happening is that Azure API was kind of lying to us.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so like South Central US, I think was the example, was a region where availability zones are being turned up. So yeah, so it responds that availability zones are available, but there's a secondary API that tells you if they're actually available for that VM type at that time.
That secondary API is actually feature flagged. So that's kind of an internal. So the person that was telling Drew was telling you that. He's like, I see it, but yeah, you don't.
Okay, there it is. There.
So this is the right way to do it is what you tried to do initially that we just totally didn't help you with. That now works, right? So
cool.
That's the good news.
Okay, so Nick, if you check out this this function, this method rather, that'll show you kind of the logic.
Okay, I'll take a look at that. The updated logic, you mean?
Yeah, Yeah.
So we're going to mimic something similar to that for the accelerated network.
Or I guess maybe.
Okay.
Yes. Let's go.
If anyone doesn't have a preference on working on it, I don't mind taking this up if this is a kind of like a long-term priority.
Well, there you go. All right. Okay. All right. And finally, this is the last new one. Get latest image for Kate's version logic. Seal, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm still not sure about how we should do this, and that was why I made that comment afterwards. So basically, right now, what Kappa is doing is they're just taking whatever latest public image exists for that Kubernetes version. And they're not pinning to a specific version of the image. I don't know if we should follow the same thing or if we should have a like version that we update in the repo. There's pros and cons for both. The main thing I was thinking of is if you are using latest, that means if we publish a version and there's something wrong with it, then
so we should not publish versions of
like user. Sorry.
Sorry, you broke up. Sorry.
Oh, I was just saying if we publish a new image and there's something wrong with it, we don't like it automatically gets picked up by users without going through a PR test and things like that.
So we should not pick an image that is going to be broken, or we should not publish an image that is broken. I know that I know that we can't always observe that ahead of time, but we should probably have a separate way of testing that.
Mm-hmm.
So however we're building the image, if we need to publish shadow versions of this, have a separate publisher, we need to have a solution so that when we publish something officially, it is working.
Yeah, so there is a preview stage in the image replication process in which it's only available theoretically to a few subscriptions. When I published the first image, though, I wasn't able to access it from my preview subscription, so I'm working with the marketplace team on that to see if it's supposed to be working or if I was doing something wrong or what. But yeah, if that was the case, then we could easily test it before we hit go live, which would be, I think that's what it's meant to be used for.
Okay, so, cool. So I think that, I mean, something to also consider here is that we claim support for multiple versions of Kubernetes, so we can't hard code. We can't hard code anything there. We have to be able to do some sort of latest discovery.
Exactly.
So we would key in on, exactly what you said, key in on the latest image for that case version.
Well, we could have like one version per Kubernetes version and set the defaulting logic depending on the Kubernetes version and then maintain a default per Kubernetes version that we support. But I think that's not.
Yeah. That's, I mean, that sounds good. Yeah. As long as we're explicit about the fact that we're doing that, I think it's fine.
Because right now, like I agree, we can't. Like right now, it was just let's have something working, and basically you can only do 116 with the current master.
Cool.
Overwrite the image manually.
Okay, so I will leave that to you. And all right, so we have a few minutes left. I think it's, sorry, go for it.
I was just going to say the other issue, existing resources. Are you still working on that, or could I help with that?
You can totally help with it. I don't know if you want to start attacking the VNet one.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping to do.
Yeah. Okay. That's totally fine. I should have. I should have not closed that. So what I'll do is Existing.
I forgot. Does that issue have the BYO other resources? Does it have a list of resources that we want to bring in?
So right now it's only existing resource group and existing virtual network. So what I'll do is reopening, spelling. Do we want to do that for this milestone?
This milestone being Alpha 3 or Alpha 2?
Alpha 2.
Well, okay, we should talk about that. I put that on the agenda. I think next milestone, because I'm hoping, well, when do you like count the end of Alpha 2? Like, is it when we release, or
not when we do the first release, but you know, I guess I think, you know, I think V1 Alpha 2 is just going to be our stopgap again. Like we stopped development on V1 Alpha 1. We should yeah, we should plan what we definitely want to land in this one. So let's put it, I'm going to leave the milestone off for now. Or do you want to start with next and see where it goes?
Yeah, I think Alpha 2 is fine if that's not before the release, because I think we should release pretty soon, like in the next few days.
Yeah, we were waiting for that image stuff to land, and it looks like it has. I was out for a few days for coffee sickness. But yeah, we should circle up and figure out what we want to do there. I think the image stuff was the image stuff and documentation, which I'm going to be working on, is the last piece.
Also going to bring that up. I started a branch in the cluster API repo to add our stuff to the book, like the quick start.
Yeah.
I haven't done any other like documentation in the cluster API Azure repo though.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't think it made sense to do any of that documentation until we had landed the images, because they're essentially unusable until then. Sorry. All right. Yeah, so I mean, now that the images do exist, then it does make sense to do that. What was that? 314. Okay. Cool. And milestone. All right, cool. All right, so looking at the current milestone, sweep to-dos, I'm kind of happy with the to-dos that are in there, to be honest. But I can say that on the issue. Passion host, I don't know about. This is simple. This just needs another PR. Yeah, I would say the image stuff looks all closed out. So docs is probably the last thing that I definitely want to do before we cut the release. So just because we cut the 0 doesn't mean the milestone's closed, right? So I mean, like, we can still actively work on it. I just want to make sure that we do cut something soon, as you were mentioning, so that we can say that, hey, people, come contribute, do stuff, right? Before we move on to Alpha 3. But we should decide if we want to basically land this and then move on to Alpha 3, or if we want to try to jam things in the box before moving on to Alpha 3. Sound good?
Yeah.
So maybe let's try to Oh, sorry, I can't see hands, by the way, so just feel free to shout at me.
Just didn't want to interrupt. I was just going to say, David and I still have one last thing we need to do regarding the image before we release, ideally, I think, because basically right now our publisher is not a first-party publisher. And so it means, it's a bit complicated, but basically it means that every user that uses the image for the first time will have to accept the legal terms.
Yeah.
And we have worked with the team that owns the publishing to get us an exception for that. So we're first party so that our users don't have to do that. So
Okay.
right now, the image that's in master, you need to accept the terms to use it. But we're publishing a new image right now, which you won't need to accept the terms for. So we'll plan on replacing the image in master with the new image as soon as it's published.
Okay. And when you say it's in master, it's just listed in the examples, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Okay, cool. Just making sure. So anyone who's on the call, please be aware that you can use the image, or you can build your own image via the image builder, or you can no, you can't go that route anymore. But yeah, you can use the image, or you can build your own image. We have tools for that.
Yeah. And I added the steps to accept the terms in the prerequisites doc in, or I think it's development or getting started.
Getting started.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
The error message tells you how to do it in PowerShell.
Well, I'm out.
Oh wow! Look, we're at time. Okay.
I had something I wanted to talk about. If we,
we're at time. Sorry, Nick. No,
Yeah.
no, go for it. Go for it.
All right. So last time I remember us talking about getting to the place where we're ready for more like freeform contributions. How are we feeling about that? I know that we're waiting a little bit. I think maybe V1 Alpha 3 is kind of what we're landing on, but I just wanted to bring that up again.
Yeah, no, I feel like V1 Alpha 2 actually people can get started. I had a great discussion with one of our customers today about Cluster API Azure, and basically we need customers using this, right? We need for varying definitions of the word customer, right? We need people consuming it that are not service providers, right? So we can have a true picture of the world. So this is the time. Once that's part of the reason that I had released that alpha of V1 Alpha 2, so people could start poking at it. So that was soft launchy, like people have been looking at it, but once we really needed the image stuff in place before, basically the bootstrap process was kind of preventing us from sharing that wider. But now that that's wrapped up with the image things, yeah, we can start opening this up. So I want to make sure that docs are super tight for development. We send a blast wide. We can do it to KDev and cloud provider and cluster lifecycle on Twitter and LinkedIn and all that good stuff, and get people active. But I want to make sure that the people who get active are not filing issues like, hey, I was going through development docs and I couldn't do this thing because it's a thing that all of you already have configured on your computer and assumed that everyone else did. So I want to make sure that we explicitly document cases like that before having unnecessary bugs being opened.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Cool.
Anything else before we go? All right. Well, pleasure as always, friends. We'll catch you same time 2 weeks. Later.
Bye.
Bye, kitty.
Bye.